Recording. I'll officially start the webinar. And then let me go live on Facebook. Okay. Give me 1 second, then we'll be live. All right, we are officially live. I am so excited. So my name is Nickerson. I'm from the SciStarter team, and I have a truly global group of people on the call with me today. We have Martina. She's calling in from the Southern Hemisphere. We got Allison. She's calling in from London. They're going to introduce themselves in a second. And we also got my colleague Roland from SciStarter. He's calling in from Lebanon. He'll be more behind the scenes today, but he's a really integral part of the team. So I'm really grateful he's here. Before Martina and Allison introduce themselves, I'm going to go through my Citizen Science Month spiel because it is the first day of Citizen Science Month. So we'll just quickly do that. So everyone, I am Caroline Nickerson. I am an advisor at SciStarter. And first and foremost, I am a citizen science enthusiast. So you might be wondering, some of you who may be watching today might be completely new to the whole field of citizen science. Citizen science, it goes by a few different names. Citizen science, some people call it community science, some people call it neighborhood science. Ultimately, it's a collaboration between scientists and those of us who are curious, concerned, and motivated to make a difference. Another way we say it at SciStarter is citizen science allows anybody and everybody to turn their curiosity about the world into real scientific impact. And most often, this is by collecting or analyzing data for research projects. And data is just information. Data can be words and pictures that you take about your experience and what you see in the world around you. Data can be numbers that you analyze to help come to a research result. Data can take a lot of different forms. So basically, what citizen science is it comes down to discovering new things about the world. I love it because it's as diverse as science itself. There are over 2,000 projects, events, and tools that have been added to SciStarter that you can go to right now to find a way to make a difference. You can monitor species diversity. If you're worried about monarch butterflies, you can count them to help researchers understand where their populations are doing well and where they might need some help. That's the Journey North project in North America. There are some projects like Stall Catchers. It's an online project where you can analyze Alzheimer's data by looking at pictures and just making a note if blood vessels are stalled or flowing. By doing that, by participating in Stall Catchers and making that simple annotation, you're helping Alzheimer's researchers with their search for a cure. So Stall Catchers is one of my favorite global projects. And today's featured project is FjordPhyto, which is all about Antarctica. It's a really exciting one. I think wherever you are in the world, you're going to be able to learn something new from our awesome team on the line. So stay tuned for that as well. But if you are hungry for more science that you can do across all different scientific disciplines, you want to make a difference and do real science with citizen science, then go to SciStarter.org, make an account, and get started. So Citizen Science Month, it's really an excuse just to celebrate citizen science. It runs all through April. It encompasses a few different things. Like online events like this one, where we go live and we just have a great conversation, have a good time, and get your brains going with different topics. But there are featured projects you can do. There are programs that you can engage in, like the International Keshathon. There are materials that you can use, like social media tiles and things like that. You can even plan your own event in your own community and get started that way. There are so many different ways to engage in Citizen Science Month. So if you go to citizensciencemonth.org, you can find these different ways and maybe plan something for your own community. It's not too late, or just keep on joining online events like this one. And the partners for Citizen Science Month, we have Arizona State University, the Network of the National Library of Medicine, All of Us Research Program, and of course, SciStarter, as well as many other partners around the world. And today's event wouldn't be possible without the support of the All of Us Research Program. So I have a brief video about them that I'm going to play. Then I'll quickly show you the Citizen Science Month website, and then we'll go off to the races with our featured speakers for today. But first, let's take a look at the All of Us Research Program, one of the biggest supporters of Citizen Science Month.
Meet Ray. Ray lives on a farm. He loves playing kickball with his grandkids, but lately he's gotten a little slower and been visiting the doctor a lot more often. This is Kim. Kim lives in the city. She loves to exercise, cook healthy meals, and can't remember the last time she called in sick. They're both people, but not all people are the same. And yet, when we visit the doctor, our treatments don't look that different. Why is that? Because we just don't have enough information to do it better, until now. Enter all of us. The research program based on precision medicine. Precision medicine is a revolutionary new approach to treating and preventing disease that's personalized instead of one size fits all. By gathering health data from 1 million people like Ray and Kim and Trevor and Samir, our country's best researchers will be able to develop treatments that are as unique and complex as we are. With this new information, doctors will have a better understanding of disease so they can innovate the next great breakthroughs in medicine. Once enough people join, suddenly everything changes. Information becomes clear, patterns emerge, and simple data transforms into life-saving knowledge. This means that Ray and Kim's children and their children's children can live longer, healthier lives. By becoming one of the first 1 million people to volunteer, you can help reshape the entire future of healthcare for generations to come. If we can figure out how to fly, put a man on the moon, and connect the entire world, surely we should be able to improve the future of healthcare. Not just for Ray and Kim or even you, but for all of us. Sign up at joinallofus.org. The future of health begins with you. Meet Ray.
So that was the All of Us research program. They're one of our biggest supporters of Citizen Science Month. We actually have an event with them this coming Wednesday that's in Spanish with English closed captionings, which I think will be really cool. So please join that. You can find it at citizensciencemonth.org and among a number of other events, project resources, and other cool stuff, citizensciencemonth.org. That's the calendar. As you can see, it is stacked. Some events are hyper local. That might just be in one town. Other events like this one are global. We got those featured projects there. There's that Star Catchers project I mentioned. So you can go to SciStarter.org/NLM to find those. And in short, April Citizen Science Month, let's party. And we're going to start the party with our first event of April 1st, with my friends from FjordPhyto. So I'm going to stop sharing here and we're going to get to our interview. And I know most people are watching on Facebook, so don't be shy. We are monitoring the Facebook chat. We are here for you. We'll be watching the recording after the fact as well, just to make sure that we're still in conversation with you. So I think we'll kick things off. Allison, if you want to go first, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll hear the same from Martina. So Allison.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Happy Citizen Science Month. Thanks for having us on, Caroline and Roland. So my name is Allison Cusick, and I am in the PhD program at Scripps Institution of Oceanography in San Diego, California, in the United States. And I have been part of FjordPhyto, actually collaboratively co-founded it with Martina and our advisors in 2016. So it's been fun to get it started and watch it grow and see how it's contributing to research and our research priorities, for our PhD dissertations, but then also to get as many people involved in polar science has been very exciting. So
Awesome. And Martina?
Hi, I'm Martina Mascioni. I'm from Argentina and I'm based in La Plata. That's really near to Buenos Aires. And I'm doing my PhD as well, working with Antarctic phytoplankton ecology. So I started working with FjordPhyto since the beginning, as Allison said, like from 2016, and try to figure out how to get people involved in polar citizen science and help us improve our knowledge about Antarctic microalgae. So it's been great through the years and see how the project has grown, how many other people wants to get involved, and how many other things we can improve on into the project, and how other things could be done too through this collaboration. So I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm so grateful to you both. This is how I really wanted to start my Citizen Science Month. So which is like, it's like the Super Bowl meets Christmas for me all month long. But I think for my first question, I'll target this toward Allison. So Allison, give us the history of FjordPhyto. How did it start? What are you all trying to discover? Give us the start to finish, the nuts and bolts of FjordPhyto.
Yeah, this is always like, how do I give the short version of this story? But basically, I would say FjordPhyto was an inspiration that was really seeded by a polar expedition team member who has been working in Antarctica for decades. And, he's been working down on expedition vessels and seeing things change and really wanting to get involved and get scientists to start collaborating. So he reached out to the National Snow and Ice Data Center in Colorado and asked to be put in touch with any scientists who work in Antarctica. And they then, trickled down and reached out to a team that Martina and I work with, FjordPhyto. And it's a group of researchers based in the United States, one of which is Maria Vernay. And so they started talking and eventually met up in Antarctica when one of the graduate students' instruments broke, and they called out to Bob Gilmore if he could have anybody bring a spare part down. And when he met them on the research vessel, Maria was like, hey, by the way, could you take these bottles and maybe start helping us collect phytoplankton? Because, Bob was saying the expedition vessels are on the peninsula for 5 months every year, whereas this research program, they had gone on a vessel but only had 1 month down there. So the ability to continue sampling for phytoplankton for the rest of the season was just the spark of this idea that maybe we could expand to other places on the peninsula through collaboration with expedition vessels. And so in 2016, I showed up on the scene. Martina had been working with that team, FjordPhyto, and then I showed up on the scene for a master's program at Scripps Institution of Oceanography in Marine Biodiversity and Conservation, and spent the year co-designing what it could look like to take our research questions about the area and how phytoplankton diversity changes through the season, and then collaborate with different operators who are interested in partnering to have ships of opportunity as a platform. And then, through that, train, various guides and work with thousands of people now to really start contributing some of that data. So I'd say that's how it started. It's really just interested people wanting to collaborate. And, yeah. I don't know if Martina, there's something else with that origin story.
Yeah, Martina, do you want to add anything to the origin story? I think she might be frozen. These things happen. Such is the world of Zoom events. I actually have a follow-up question for you on that, Allison. So what is a fjord? Like, let's go to the etymology of the name. What's a fjord? What's a phyto? Walk us through it.
That was a great question. So a fjord is basically in the last glacial ice age, 10,000 years ago, where all the glaciers extent to their mass extent. When they retreated, they carved out these U-shaped valleys. So if any of these valleys were on the coast, then they filled with marine, seawater. And so it's just a deep underwater, undersea valley that has different, like where the glacier had been, leaves kind of the mark of different sills and troughs. And so fjords are just very deep. You could take a ship in, and if you dove, you'd be on a straight vertical wall down. So that's kind of the general definition of a fjord. And then so you can pull up these old maps of where the last glacial ice age extent was, and then you can see like most of the fjords in the world are Chile, New Zealand, the Antarctic Peninsula. Up in the Northern Hemisphere, you have British Columbia, Canada, Alaska, Norwegian fjords, of course, are probably really well-known fjords, Icelandic fjords, those places in the world.
And then actually, this is a really nice question. Lori from Facebook, she says, I'm in middle school and I'm interested in science. My question is, what is phytoplankton and why is it important to be studied? So this is perfect. We're getting at both halves of the name. So Allison just told us what a fjord is. So now, Allison, what is phytoplankton and why it's important? That's the other half of your name, the phyto part.
So phyto is for phytoplankton. So we got fjord, phyto. And phytoplankton are two Greek words. Phyto means plant and plankton means drifter or wanderer. So it's basically phytoplankton are single-celled organisms that drift around in the ocean and use sunlight to make their energy. So they're plant-like.
And why are they important? So why should we care about phytoplankton?
Martina, you want to take over that one?
Yes, sorry, I turned off my camera a little bit because my internet was so unstable. So phytoplankton are these drifting microalgae, like plant-like organisms in the sea. And because they're not plants in the sea, as you can imagine, these are the foundation of the base of the food web. So these organisms make the food for every other organisms that live in the ocean. The small micro zooplankton, they are like little animals that feed on phytoplankton, are the food for like whales, fish, orcas, everything that you can imagine in the sea, actually. So, for example, krill, that we know they're whale preferred food, they feed on phytoplankton, and that's what they are important for the ecosystem, of course.
So what
Yeah,
would happen to, oh, sorry, you go first, Allison.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, like if you wanted to top three most important things, is the first, what Martina said, is the base of the food web. And then also their ability to move carbon around, because they're taking inorganic carbon and converting it to organic carbon, which provides that food. And then the third is their ability, because they're photosynthesizing and they're releasing oxygen. So top three is like base of the food web, major carbon cycling, and then major oxygen production for the world's oxygen.
Yeah,
That's
there's
awesome.
a question on the chat actually about that. The phytoplankton produces half of the oxygen we breathe, actually. So they kind of produce more air and more oxygen than all the trees combined.
So Martina, what would happen to us if there weren't any phytoplankton? Like, let's say they all got sick and died. What would happen?
Well, I don't know exactly what will happen with us, but for sure we wouldn't have as much oxygen as we have. And I don't think life in the ocean will survive without any phytoplankton, because they feed every single life in the ocean. So they're really, really important organisms, although we don't see them.
This feels like one of the thought questions on a first year PhD exam.
Oh my gosh, new fear unlocked. I'm gonna have nightmares about losing the phytoplankton. Oh my gosh. But it's good to appreciate it. It's good to know that something that's so unseen is so important to all life on Earth. Before we get into the project itself, I'm also curious, and I would love if both of you could answer this. Maybe Martina, you can go first. For me, Antarctica is something really distant, right? I can barely even conceptualize it in my mind. So could you try to paint a picture for us of what Antarctica is like? Just for people listening, like what if you've been there? Like what happens there? What's it like there?
I feel like even for us, or at least for me, like going to Antarctica is going to a different world. I love it. It's so different. It's like you have the mountains and the sea, and you're so isolated for everything else. And it's like a still untouched continent. Like there's people doing research there, but not people living there. So it's like, I don't know, like a different universe. I feel like it feels different from anything else that I've been, but I don't know. Maybe Allison has a different picture of what Antarctica looks like.
No, I'd actually say that one of the inspirations of why I went into STEM or science specialized in that was because I wanted to be an astronaut. And when I first got to Antarctica and I saw how massive it is, it's just like the scale. I think it's like the scale is so large that you can't actually like capture it in quite well in a photo. And it really touches all your senses. So the cold, the dry, the wind, it's just like raw nature. And for me, that's where I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm on another planet. And this really scratches that itch to be an astronaut and like travel to these remote places that are just unlike anything you would think is on Earth. And yeah, to your point about it being remote, it is actually incredibly important and connected to, everything on Earth. So I think trying to find ways to connect people to the place is one of our goals and challenges.
Yeah, I mean, follow up on that. You mentioned wanting to be an astronaut. Maybe Allison, you can answer this question first, and then Martina can. So Lori from Facebook asked, "What made you interested in science, and how did you get the job that you have?" So Allison, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I can elaborate a little bit more on that. So I think for me, I just, when I, you have to figure out what you want to be when you grow up. I thought astronauts traveled the most of any human, and I just have this like wanderlust and desire to see the world and Earth. And so I thought, oh, I'll be an astronaut, and then went to university, and that's where I looked up most of the astronauts I was looking at had degrees in science, technology, engineering, or math. So I just started like, well, maybe I'll take some science classes. And then I really fell in love with biology and stuck with biology. And then, actually took 10 years off of undergrad to work various biology jobs in different fields, neuroscience and immunology and field biology with parrots and squirrels and like macaws and big cats in Africa. And then eventually randomly got sent to Antarctica. It was very serendipitous for me, my first time down. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to totally dedicate my scientific career to understanding the biology of Antarctica, because it really, hits home all the different things that I really found interesting in science and personal desire to see these amazing places.
Martina, what about you?
For me, well, it was very different from Allison. I was also like not very sure that I wanted to be when I grew up. You're a teenager and you finish school and you're like, what are you gonna do when you're grown up? And I wasn't sure, but I love all the living organisms. So I say, okay, I will try biology. And so I started studying biology and I just fell in love with biology. And then when I start taking this subject that has things under the microscope, I just love to see things like hidden things under the microscope. They're like amazing, and you can discover so many things in a drop of water. So I was like, this is what I want to do. So after I finished my degree, I started PhD and I started working with Antarctic diatoms like right away. But then, well, Allison come in the picture with Burnett, and they offered me to start working on the citizen science. And I was like, what is citizen science? I have no idea what citizen science was. And I feel when I started to realize what citizen science is and what it, what it involves, I fell in love with citizen science. And I feel like now I can't do science without citizen science anymore. I feel like this is another, I don't know, thing that improve my research in a different way. Like it's more human. I don't know, like it makes you realize impact in a human world.
Love that you mentioned the citizen science aspect, because for me, that's one reason I'm so passionate about it, because I know Lori, who's watching on Facebook and has been asking a bunch of questions. Keep them coming, Lori. We love it. But you don't have to be a scientist in your professional life to do science as a citizen scientist. I've worked with people who are like accountants or hairdressers or even maybe a lion tamer, whatever job. And they're able to do real science with citizen science and work with people like Allison and Martina, the scientists, to be in partnership to get some really cool research results. So I think that's a good pivot actually to how people actually participate. So we covered what fjords are, we covered what phytoplankton are, and we know that FjordPhyto is trying to document the phytoplankton living in the fjords of Antarctica. But how does someone participate? Like if I am a citizen scientist watching this right now, how do I get involved? Whichever one of you wants to take that, go for it.
Yeah, I think the first thing to actually be able to get your hands on this, we provide scientific equipment kits of gear to different tour operators that we work with down in Antarctica. And so you would have to be a traveler that is taking a voyage to Antarctica to be able to actually collect the phytoplankton from the polar region. And that case, then there are various operators we work with now. I think up to 10 different operators who participate in this. And so on one of your voyages, you would, you could see on the website who's doing the project, and then on the voyage, you could get involved. They're just part of one of the activities you can do is the science boat. And then actually get your hands wet collecting. For me, I was just wanted to add too, it was like when I first went to Antarctica, I was on a research vessel and I just learned of the tour industry. I mean, I knew of it, but there's definitely like either researchers or the tour industry are the two main groups that visit. And so for me, it was like, yeah, how do we get, there's only maybe 5,000 to 10,000 scientists working on the continent from all the nations throughout the whole year. But this last season, there were estimated to be 100,000 visitors coming on expedition vessels, which is like, over 10 to 1 visit, like traveler to scientists, which is an amazing community to get involved in actually participating. But we're starting to come up with ways people can get involved without having to go to Antarctica. So I don't know if Martina, you want to talk more about if that's like through iNaturalist, for instance.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, our project has that little detail that you have to actually go to Antarctica to participate. And we don't work with every single operator that goes to Antarctica. We have a limited quantity of kits so that we spread out. But we want people get more and more involved in our project. So we start thinking about other ways that people can get involved. We have an iNaturalist project, and people from Antarctica is actually starting taking pictures, and you can see them and you can upload maybe pictures from all over the world. I think the most complicated thing about phytoplankton is like you need a microscope to see them. So even though if you collect a sample of water, whatever you are, if you don't have a microscope that has very high magnification, you won't be able to see them. So that's the tricky part also about this hidden world. So we are getting about ideas of get more people involved in how we can collaborate around the world, but this is what we are right now.
Awesome. I'm actually going to share my screen for a second. So if you all go to SciStarter, you can find FjordPhyto's SciStarter profile. And then when you click the visit link from their SciStarter profile, it takes you right to iNaturalist. So I just wanted to show this is so awesome. This is what it looks like in Antarctica, everyone. But if you scroll down, it explains how folks can get started. Not in Antarctica. So you get the gear you need. Then with your smartphone or computer, you upload the images of phytoplankton to the project. If your images are not from Antarctica, that is okay. You can still participate with any images of phytoplankton around the world. And of course, because iNaturalist is a SciStarter affiliate, you can get your things credited in your dashboard. And here's the gear people need. So you need a phytoplankton net, you need some water, you need a microscope, a smartphone or camera to take an image through the microscope, and then you upload it to iNaturalist. This is so interesting.
On the point of the microscope, oh, sorry.
Go for it.
I was just going to add for the microscope, we found a really cool low-cost portable one we like, but there's also one that came out of Stanford, which I think is trying to garner interest in citizen science efforts, called FoldScope. And it's just a paper origami-inspired microscope that's meant to be, within $1 budget range, and you can fold it up, and it's a pocket microscope you take with you, and you can actually like put a drop of water on there and get pretty good magnification and then take photos with your phone. So that's a cool little tool, since you do need a microscope to see phytoplankton.
That's so awesome. So FoldScope, everybody, that's a potential microscope you can use. It's so interesting. So this person, they submitted this observation from Stonington Island. Let's look at the details. On the Antarctic Peninsula. And it seems like they got their microscope, they got their water sample, they looked at it through a microscope, they took a picture, and they submitted it to FjordPhyto. So I'm curious, so once you guys get the submission, so people collect the water, take the sample, submit their picture after they take a picture through a microscope, what's the benefit of getting these images for you all? Maybe Allison, do you want to answer that one?
I was going to say, I don't know if Martina wants to, since she's a microscope expert. I analyze phytoplankton by smashing up bulk mass collected to extract DNA. So I never really get to see the microscope images, but Martina's specialty is a taxonomist by using microscopes. So.
Well, thank you. Actually, well, phytoplankton, they're really hard to identify, let's say. It's not like we don't have an easy guide like birds that you take with you to a trip and then you look at birds and you can easily identify them. They're very microscopic organisms and they have very tiny little details that I don't know, like now I've been looking for ages, for like these last 10 years, I've been looking at phytoplankton samples. So I look something and I really know what it is right away, but because my eye has been trained so many years on what are the specific things that you have to look at. But for normal people that are not common, they don't have common names. These names are all in Latin or Greek. So it's like, what does it mean? Where are they from? So usually, well, if you upload your images to iNaturalist, you may have some kind of identification, or it's going to tell you where is the group. Sometimes if you upload them to iNaturalist, I would, into the FjordPhyto project, I would check on those identifications. So you will have an improved identification for me. And if not, well, there's several books on how to identify phytoplankton. They're very sciencey and very specific. So they're really hard to get. We're working on a phytoplankton identification book that it would be for everyone and not just for scientists, real scientists, and with these crazy scientific words that nobody understands. But still a work in progress. So we hope we can have it for next season, but we don't want to make promises, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. So that's really interesting. Like the fact that there are different types of phytoplankton, and by looking through a microscope and taking these pictures, you can identify the different types. I'm curious though, for the folks, participating from anywhere and uploading it to the iNaturalist, are the people participating in Antarctica, I guess, how are you all using this data? Are you trying to understand if like certain phytoplankton populations are at risk and there isn't enough certain types of phytoplankton? Or I guess, what are you trying to get at from the data that's submitted?
Yeah, I think I can answer. So we actually, we started the project in 2016 and then just with last year received NASA funding. So we're now trying to relate what we actually collect from the water with remote sensing capabilities from satellites. So ocean color changes, chlorophyll. I think that the iNaturalist component, as you can see, our project page is just now getting started with recent observations. So it's a new element that we're trying to think about how to expand to get more people involved. And the idea with that is that, we'll be getting the actual water samples collected that we then analyze back in the lab from the FjordPhyto kit and gear with the collaboration we have. But then anybody who could participate in submitting photos through iNaturalist, like if they did have the fold scope or there was a microscope, they don't need the rest of the gear, they can still submit observations. That could just be like in this early moment while it's growing and getting more and more observations. If anything unique popped up that, the ships kind of move up and down the peninsula and then from November through March. But if somebody submitted a photo of something that we hadn't seen, or like a bloom. So when phytoplankton rapidly grow, we call that a bloom. And any bloom might be one dominant type of phytoplankton, or it might be a collection of different types of phytoplankton. And so the ability to have more and more observations submitted might contribute to an observation of a bloom species that wouldn't have been detected if it was like in between the week where no ship had done a FjordPhyto science boat, but somebody had taken some seawater and taken a microscope observation. Does that make, did I explain that?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to understand. So is the ultimate goal of FjordPhyto to kind of like do a census of phytoplankton to understand like how they're doing, what types are where? Or what would you say is the ultimate project goal?
For our research questions, it's what is the species diversity or like if we're able to do a time series basically from November through March, and different ships are collecting these samples, can we detect how the succession, or like which species follows the next species on a finer time scale? So instead of just a research vessel checking in December and then coming back in April, we don't know what happened in between. Now with this project, it could be more fine scale changes being detected. And then specifically, our research is asking the question if the species diversity is in any way influenced by melting glaciers. So the melting glaciers, the Antarctic Peninsula is the third fastest warming region in the world. And this melting glacial water is fresh water that comes into the marine environment. And so we're wondering if there's a shift in the type of species we see in relation to melting glaciers. So the different suite of samples and data measurements that are collected through the FjordPhyto science boat are helping specifically answer those questions. But then through the iNaturalist, it's just supported observations for the species diversity changes that might be detected.
Wow. Okay, this is amazing because I think one thing for me, just like learning about different citizen science projects, people often ask, like, why citizen science? Why can't researchers just do this? I think you just answered that perfectly. Why citizen science? Because like we need more people monitoring this. Glaciers are melting more and more quickly. The climate change, research vessels aren't coming through as frequently and in as much quantity as the tourist cruise ships. So we need the public in there helping monitor this in Antarctica, especially, and around the world, to understand how this vital species is doing and what impacts are occurring in relation to melting glaciers and other things. Wow, this is blowing my mind. This is great. Martina, do you want to add anything in reference to the research questions, just so folks can understand like part of the value of this project and why citizen scientists are involved?
I feel like, well, we've been trying to get into iNaturalist for a long time and try to make it work. The only trouble we have is like when you're in Antarctica, it's so remote that the internet doesn't work that well. So uploading images right into, like when you're in Antarctica is sometimes hard. So sometimes people have to take the pictures in Antarctica and then come back home and upload the pictures back then when they have actual good internet connection. But we have been successful the last couple of years. So more and more people get involved. And I love iNaturalist personally. I feel like this is a great project. And as a researcher, I don't know if you, like maybe normal people is like, well, I'm just uploading one picture and it's like, what is going to change? But then as a researcher, you have so much information that you can get from one picture that is amazing. And from Antarctica specifically, is like, you can feel like, oh, well, Antarctica has been known for decades and there's people doing research there. So they may be things that are common. And every time we see a phytoplankton sample or everything, we're discovering new stuff because it's actually places that have never been seen before or nobody has paid attention to the phytoplankton yet. So there are a lot of new things. And we're just in love with this project just to try to get all the diversity as much as we can. And then also because, yeah, the melting glaciers, like all these climate changes threaten all this diversity. It's like, what if we lose all this diversity and we never know about that? So I think that's one of the best parts of the project, just get more and more information about what is the phytoplankton like.
Love it. And I actually think we may have just recruited a new polar citizen scientist, because Lori, the middle school student who's watching on Facebook, she asked, do you need a passport to go to Antarctica? So I feel like she was hearing this and thinking like, how do I get down there? How do I start collecting these samples? So will Lori need a passport to go to Antarctica? What do you think, Martina?
Yeah, you definitely need one. I think most ships require that, and you usually have to travel international to get there. Most ships leave from Argentina actually, or Chile, or there are some leaving from New Zealand.
Australia now. Yeah, New Zealand.
So yeah, you definitely need to travel abroad and then catch the cruises. down there.
All right, Lori. So yeah, get your passport in, and then you can hopefully travel down, take one of the cruise lines, and go collect some data with FjordPhyto.
I was gonna, can I add? Oh, sorry.
Go for it.
I had 2 more points on what Martina was saying. I think too, understanding the importance of the species changing, or if we can detect novel species, is also important because of what we had mentioned earlier with their contribution to the carbon or the biomass. And so if you're shifting sizes to smaller phytoplankton, for instance, or you're getting less blooms occurring, you know, now that we're being able to sample and observe things at a finer time gradient, maybe we'll detect certain changes like that that might shift the amount of organic carbon available for that food web system. And then also, you know, there's a lot of effort elsewhere in the world for what are called harmful algal blooms. And these are certain phytoplankton produced toxins. And so those have not yet been detected in the Southern Ocean, fuller nearshore environment of the Antarctic Peninsula. But as things are shifting and warming up, there might be some detection with the warmer water coming in and the warmer climate that those species would also move in. And so just being able to monitor this stuff now is another thing that can come from this type of work.
Love that. And we have the perfect follow-up question right here from, it's Alavia. She said, I'm on my mom's account for permission. Don't worry, Alavia, we won't bust you if you snuck on here to watch a phytoplankton event. But she asked, I am wondering what you do with the information you learn and the discoveries you make. So after you all learn something with FjordPhyto, what do you do with that discovery? I don't know who wants to take that first.
Oh.
Maybe Martina?
Yeah, sure. I can answer that. So what we do with the analysis we get from the samples is like to start doing some kind of science publication. That's also usually what you do in the science world to get this publication, these big papers. But we also try to get this more into the public. So we also made this report year after year that we send back to the operators that work with us, so they know what had happened with the samples or where do we have published. And then we also present at scientific conferences or citizen science conferences. We have been to citizen science conference almost every year. I feel we do a lot of these webinars or seminars talking about FjordPhyto results or everything that we can talk about, and a lot of work in the social media. And well, there's a lot of information in our website. I feel like if you go there, you can be reading stuff all day. So there's a lot of like everything that we do is on our website and it's hanging there in some place, or you can click some links and they're going to take you somewhere. We have so many interviews and talks and everything, so you can see on different levels of scientific language, I would say, the results that we have been having so far. Yeah, I feel like that's what we do. I don't know if Allison wants to say anything else.
Yeah, Allison, what happens after FjordPhyto discovery? What's the next step?
I think there's always going to be stuff to discover, but yeah, definitely trying to share in all the different portals that we have the ability to share in to keep people updated with what's happening. I did have a thought and I all of a sudden lost what I was about to say. So give me a minute to think about.
It's all good. That happens to me all the time.
Maybe
I know it'll come to you, Allison.
About social media reports.
I think I was going to just also add that, you know, the ability of what we actually find scientifically, since there's always more data being gathered, that we've been able to expand with other students' interests. So for instance, some of the students, masters and undergrad students now, we've been able to have them take on a different element of the project to ask different questions that, you know, we're focused on answering part of it, but there's just room for expansion in different people's interests. So yeah, to keep, that's what I was gonna say. So the publications that we choose to publish in, we also choose open access journals, so that, since it is a citizen science program, we don't want to publish this information that's behind paywalls that people can't get to. So that's one of the other things we try to do, is just keep a very open access public knowledge share about this. So also when the data gets uploaded, it will be to public repositories that even the scientific community can access, so that data and information is available. That's what I was going to say.
Awesome. And another great question from Olivia. She wants to know if phytoplankton look the same or if they look different from each other. Martina, I know you're the microscope expert. Maybe you can answer that one.
Well, phytoplankton doesn't look the same. Any of the species look the same. They're very different. Actually, phytoplankton is like this big label of a lot of things from very different words. Like they're very, very different between each other, like between plants and animals. There are a lot of different things because they all are microscopic. We think they're all the same, but they're actually very, very different from each other. They come from different words. They have different features, different ways that they make they're all photosynthesized, but they have different ways on how they photosynthesize different kind of chloroplasts and chlorophylls and everything. So they don't look nothing like the same. There are different groups that can have similar features, but they're very, very different. It's like a very high diverse group, I think. And that's also amazing for me. It's like how these microscopic organisms have been developing through the years, these whole different features, and they're amazing. I love phytoplankton. Yeah. I'm biased, I think. But yeah, it's like when you look at them, there's like they're not similar between each other. They're very, very different. Yeah, Allison, sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna add, yes, it's crazy when you're looking under the microscope. It's like sci-fi alien world, because some of them, look like just circles or like M&Ms, and some of them look like sticks, and some of them look like spaceships, and some of them have weird looking finger things, and some of them look like centipedes, and some of them if they don't have their own chlorophyll, they'll go steal it from other phytoplankton, or they'll eat each other. And to what Martina said, they're actually a group of life that we don't really ever talk about. So they're not animals, they're not really plants, they're not fungi, they're not bacteria, and they're not archaea. They're a whole group called the protists. And as Martina said, within the protists, they're more diverse than within the animal kingdom. It's insane. So if you like sci-fi or aliens or crazy, behaviors, definitely get to learn more about the phytoplankton.
Yeah, I feel like it's also a matter of evolving and living in this planet. Like these creatures have been in this planet since the dinosaurs were on Earth. So they have been evolving for a long, long time. They have evolved their own specific features that allow them to be here and make the best of what they can do. So that's how also like an explanation of how different they are, because they have been here for a long, long time. So they have been evolving in so many different ways that you can even think about.
Awesome. I love it. And I think she's also wondering if you all have a book or further reading, like where could someone who's really interested in this stuff go to learn more?
That's probably one of the hardest questions to answer, because there is no one book or place. Even when I first started learning about phytoplankton, I would just Google, and then any book you can get your hands on, just start reading. There's a lot of actually, no, there is one book that I absolutely love. I just read it last year. It's called Life's Engines by Falkowski. And it is an awesome book on how microbes change the world. And it does talk about the evolution of phytoplankton. When was the first phytoplankton, with the first cyanobacteria billions of years ago. And that book is an awesome start book. Also, there's another amazing book called Plankton by Christian Sardet, which we also love. It's a gorgeous like coffee table style book with a lot of cool information about not just phytoplankton, but also zooplankton or animal plankton. And then Tiny Drifters is a fun book about phytoplankton. That's my top three. What about you, Martina?
About the microscopic world, I love James and Germs stuff. He has this I can't remember the name of it.
Journey to the
YouTube
Microcosm.
channel. Oh yeah, Journey to the Microcosms. I love those YouTube videos. They're amazing, and they have so much information. They're all about the microscopic world. They're not just of plankton. They talk about other organisms. I highly recommend them if you want to get into the loophole of plankton and microscopic world. And then about books, I don't know if I have a specific book to start with. I feel like it's also, as Allison say, if you Google something and you start reading and you like it, there's a blog, they usually check some cool facts about plankton, but it's in Spanish. I don't know if they have a translated version. It calls Phyto Pasión, like for phyto and passion, actually. And that's made from, that's written, a researcher from Spain writes that. And they have so many cool facts about phytoplankton that, I don't know. I feel like you can find so much other things that maybe I haven't looked at, but everything that you can learn about plankton, I think is worth it. So.
Awesome. This is so exciting. And actually, I wanted to give a quick plug to y'all's blog because you named some awesome books there. But I think for my purposes, because I'm really curious in this stuff, just reading what you all have written. So if you go to FjordPhyto's website and look at their blog posts, and like the teaser video you all made, that was really fun. I think there's some really interesting stuff here, and y'all's social media presence is great too. So I'd recommend for those watching who are really curious about this stuff, and especially who want to stay up to date on what FjordPhyto's doing, just check out their blog, look at their social media, and stay in touch.
Yeah, thanks for plugging that out, because we don't get a lot of that inspiration is also because the people who go to Antarctica and participate in the project on their travels, we don't get their contact information. And so one of the reasons we try to stay very active on social media is so people can follow up, because otherwise how would we get in touch with anybody who contributed? And then that just inspires other people to find our blogs and YouTubes. And so it's just more knowledge sharing, which we think is really important part of the scientific process and learning about these places in the world that are really remote.
Awesome. Okay, let's see. Then one more question from the students watching. Olivia asked, I was wondering, what advice do you have for kids who want to do what you're doing? So how can someone become a polar scientist or a polar citizen scientist? Maybe Martina, do you want to take that first? How can, if someone wants your job and wants to do what you're doing, how can they do it?
I think there's so many ways that you can get involved with polar research, but probably STEAM careers are the main ones. Like if you like life, you can go with biology. If you like engineering or another science, there's always a way to get involved in polar research. I feel like almost every country has a polar program, so you can start asking about who is doing that or who like, and there are so many things to study in Antarctica, not only phytoplankton, although it's the coolest thing. But you can learn some things like
we lose me a little bit.
Or yeah. So, oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So I feel like that would be one way. There's also like, this tour industry. So if you like to work with tourism and if you like science too, you can go that way. I don't know if there's any other way, Allison, what other things you can think about?
Yeah, I would say, because if you wanted to work in Antarctica, since it is so outdoor oriented, any outdoor skills you can get, boat driving or being comfortable in wilderness scenarios would be a good place to start. And then as far as getting involved in specific polar, look at your nation's polar programs, and then just start following newsletters, read for different opportunities that come up. And also, if it's not like, a lot of people want to go to Antarctica, but even just starting with anything remote, like anything like looking at data sets or helping with science communication posts or going to a community event or something, like eventually it will lead to going if that's your ultimate desire. But I would definitely recommend starting with anything polar related. It doesn't have to, you never know when the door is going to open to actually physically go there. So
Yeah.
the more you just immerse yourself in anything polar in any capacity, the better.
Yeah, there's also Apex. I don't know if you have heard of that, as Early Career Researchers Association. And they not only do Antarctica, they also do Arctic and other like kind of third polar regions like mountain and that kind of stuff. And they post a lot of stuff, different things for any other level of educational levels. So you can see what they have, join the new enlister they have, and what are the facilities or possibilities from all around the world. So there's actually very cool information back there.
Love it. And so for anybody watching, so I was thinking about like, what am I going to do to follow up after this? And I was thinking, I want to get my foldscope microscope. I want to, next time I visit my parents, they live on the coast in Florida. I want to take a sample, get my microscope, take a picture, and submit it to iNaturalist. With that, do you all think that would work? Does it need to be ocean water if someone wants to send a sample of phytoplankton, or just any water work?
When they're in the ocean, they're called phytoplankton, but the same type of organisms are in freshwater and ponds and puddles, so microalgae. So yes, that would also work if you found some microalgae in a puddle or a pond or a river, or they grow on waterfalls, or they could be anywhere.
All right, well, I put my order in for my microscope from Foldscope. It's really cheap. So for anyone else who's also watching this and they want to get started, join me this Citizen Science Month. I'm gonna, this is a promise for me, I'm gonna be sending in a picture. It's the iNaturalist FjordPhyto project. So stay tuned, everybody. But I wanted to ask for both of you, do you have any calls to action for people watching? Anything you think people should do after hearing this?
I would say that at least definitely be awesome to connect with you if you want to follow us on we're very active on the Instagram, but and just if you have more questions of us, we are actively, answering comments and questions that way. So connect with us is a great way, we think, to get involved. Just we can, if you have a more specific question, answer that.
Love it. And is there anything else for both of you that you haven't said yet that you think people should know about FjordPhyto, about polar citizen science, about anything we've talked about? Maybe Martina, you can take that first. Is there anything else you haven't had a chance to share yet that you think people should know?
I don't know. I just wanted to say something about related what Allison said. So because I'm based in Argentina and like my main language is Spanish and not English, we're trying to get more into the Spanish speaker community. So we're trying to, like, our website is only in English, but we have so many publications in Spanish as well. So if you're from Spanish speaking community, you can also read some of the information that is in the FjordPhyto website. We have YouTube videos on Spanish as well. So you can try to see, and it will be amazing to learn another language and make into the world community and other languages. But for now, it's English and Spanish. But I think that's another thing that maybe I don't know. maybe you don't think about, because this is everything in English, and you visit our website and you feel like this is all in English, but there's people talking in Spanish that contact us, and we can answer that as well. So
that makes me so happy to hear, because I've been loving the trends I've seen about like citizen science projects in multiple languages, like Globe at Night. That's one of my favorite citizen science projects, another one of them. And they always do, they have like, I think 57 languages on their website now. Like volunteers have just been translating their data form into different languages. So people can submit astronomy data about light pollution anywhere in the world. So yeah, I love that y'all are doing Spanish language outreach and things like that. That makes me really excited. Allison, is there anything else you haven't shared yet that you want to share with the people watching?
Yeah, I was gonna say too, I think on our website we have a form that says, or not a, it's one of the links in Get Started or how to get involved. And so if you can't go to Antarctica to actually participate in one of the science boats, we have a suggested like other ways you could collaborate with us. If you have an idea, if you're from a fjord region of the world, you know, it's a form to fill out to suggest some ideas. And what Martina said too, there's so many aspects of this project that just she and I can't expand alone. So we are really open to ideas of collaboration. And if you have an idea, you know, we also want to expand to the Arctic. If you have an idea that you think we could collaborate with, then that could also be a call to action, like brainstorm collaborative ideas with us.
yeah.
That's awesome. And I love one more note from Olivia, who was watching. She said, "Hola de Martina," because I'm also bilingual. And she also said, "It was really cool to watch your video." You were awesome, Olivia. I hope that you end up becoming a polar scientist and starting your own citizen science project. And then we're interviewing you for Citizen Science Month in the future, which is very exciting. Cool. I think we're right at time. This was a very fun conversation. Such a great way to start the month. For everyone else who's watching, please participate in FjordPhyto just like me. We'll submit our data on iNaturalist and we'll be able to cheer each other on. There is a survey if you want to give us feedback on this event. If you were watching on Facebook, you're more than welcome to fill out the survey. It's links.asu.edu/CSM-participant-survey-11. We'll also copy and paste that link into the Facebook chat so you can fill that out. Martina and Allison, anything else before we go?
Oh, I was just going to highlight, since I see Arizona State University on there, that we're also going to Puerto Rico this summer to teach a course to students on the island about phytoplankton and NASA's remote sensing products and GIS. And so that's another cool expansion that has come, which we're looking forward to, and it will all be in Spanish as well. So, and then also thank you for everybody tuning in and anybody watching this later. It's been awesome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation, and it's been a blast to be here. Thank you.
Yay, awesome. Talk to y'all later. See you next Science Month, if not sooner. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.